Okay. All right, perfect. Hello and welcome to another week of the Lost Confederacy channel. This is week 3 of the 13-week fiscal program for recovery for American prisoners of war. You have myself, Chief Biko. Today we have Chief Quietwater as well as Chief Alligator. And here, as always, we focus more so on that first letter in the acronym APOW, which is American. As always, we're going to continue to drill the point down in showing how this government is pretty much fully infiltrated by militia. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and play this MSNBC news article from the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League.
Defamation League's Center on Extremism is out with an in-depth analysis of a leaked Oath Keepers membership list from a year ago, which finds there were hundreds of names on it of current or former elected officials, law enforcement officers, and members of the military. The Oath Keepers are a far-right militia group, multiple members of which stormed the United States Capitol during the insurrection and that attack on January 6th. For more on this new report, CEO and National Director of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, joins us now. Jonathan, thanks for being with us. So take us through the report that you all did, how you got your hands on the list, and what were some of the more troubling aspects of what you found?
Sure. Thank you for having me this morning, Willie. And I will tell you, this is a chilling report, the likes of which we've never released before. Last September, ADL analysts were able to get our hands on a data leak of the Oath Keepers membership rolls. There were 38,000 names that were essentially pulled from their records and put out in the open. Our analysts pulled down the information before the Oath Keepers could pull it back. We used open source techniques, including public records, social media, and other methods to review every single name that we found. And I must say, we thought the Oath Keepers were a threat when they rampaged through the Capitol on January the 6th, but we had no idea just how deep the threat truly is. We found hundreds of active law enforcement members who are part of the Oath Keepers, 10 chiefs of police, 11 sheriffs, dozens and dozens of active members of the U.S. military, some 80 individuals who were running for public office, almost 24 of whom made it through the primaries and will be up this fall. And look, you might not know all of these names. Many people might know Arizona State Senator Wendy Rogers, who still, months after the terror attack at the Capitol, proudly proclaimed that she was an Oath Keeper and supported the group. But I'm talking about a county commissioner in Nevada, a town justice in New York, a firearms instructor in Pittsburgh, a pastor in North Carolina, and it goes on and on and on. These are individuals with access and influence. These are individuals with resources and training. And these are individuals who have shown us they are willing to commit acts of sedition and violence against the U.S. government.
Jonathan, are you surprised at the extent of the membership of the Oath Keepers and other far-right groups who apparently, or maybe they do know, that the underpinnings of the philosophy of these groups are rooted in race and religion? In other words, they're against anybody who isn't white. And Jewish people obviously have a target on their backs based upon their philosophies. Does this surprise you at all that their membership is so diverse in a sense?
It somewhat does. I mean, look, right-wing extremism is the spectrum. We know that, Mike. And so there are white supremacists, there are sovereign citizens, and indeed, there are these armed militia groups. We know organizations like the Proud Boys. Tario, the head of it, is Hispanic. And indeed, there is some diversity among the Oath Keepers. But I think what's more frightening is the fact that they, for a long time, have prioritized recruiting active and retired law enforcement and military. We thought, Mike, they weren't being successful. We were wrong. We have a problem with an enemy inside our own ranks. who has committed, as the Oath Keepers do, to uphold a higher oath, not to have fidelity to our commander-in-chief or necessarily to the jurisdictions where they work, but to their notion of the Constitution and a holy obligation that, again, puts minorities, puts Democrats, and puts ordinary citizens in their crosshairs.
CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, thank you very much for coming on this morning.
All right. So again, as we continue to, like I said earlier, nail this hammer home, just another example of how this system isn't for us. It's infiltrated by, militia. And again, this is just one militia group that they've been able to uncover and unpack the lanes of its members. And as he stated before, them being judges, politicians, active military, retired military, active, law enforcement, retired law enforcement, arms dealers, the list goes on. So my question is, why, or do you still have faith in this system as the viewer? And if you do, why do you have faith in this system? Again, he's not going down the list of the names to say, okay, this is the person in this state that's running for exposition in, let's say, Minnesota or North Carolina. He's just saying, hey, we found a list. It's a lot of members, but hey, we're not going to divulge that information. We're just letting you know, hey, a lot of people are involved in this thing. So knowing that, why do you still have faith as American people? We're going to use the term Black people in this system. It's putting it right in your face, guys. But I'll let y'all go ahead and build off of that.
And he's probably saying that because, it would be a different story if it was a couple of people here and there, but it's probably too many people to name for them to just go down the list. And it's probably people that the majority would not even expect to be on the list. So, yeah.
Yeah, so translation of everything Chief Biko and Chief Quietwater said, I used to be one of those people prior to 2020 when Ahmaud Arbery got killed, that I was, didn't care about either wing or the bird, but Democrat, Republican, politically correct. But that was another moment for me where something clicked. The fact that you shot that man in broad daylight, had that man run out of his shoes, and the district attorney in that county saw that video and did not choose to consider that a murder on a Sunday afternoon, broad daylight, when they killed Ahmaud Arbery. I promised myself from that day forward, I'm gonna stay strapped for the rest of my life. So I rock this when it's every day operating in commerce, moving around. I keep this on me. Now, if shit hits the fan, I got the bitch, right? And it's okay to have a bitch, but you also need to know how to clean it, service it, the whole nine, right? Take your recoil spring out, take it off safely. So what I'm saying to y'all is this. This is what militias have. Militias have this. That man just told you that the whole public sector is infiltrated with militia. Why are you still wondering when you get killed on video by police that nothing happens within that police department? They all down by law, they militia. Why are you still scratching your head about the bullshit January 6 hearings where Secret Service can delete evidence, nobody goes to jail? All this stage play that just ended this week, and the best they could come up with is we'll just vote to have the former president subpoenaed. No real criminal charges, no treason, nobody getting hung for violating the supposed highest crimes under this government. And you still scratching your head as to what's going on. You're infiltrated, you're surrounded by militia. When they kill you, they're going to do an internal investigation, which means they're not going to lock up their own. So it's time for us to stop being in denial, and it's time to get your shit together, strap up, organize with your people, because it's coming. That's my little 2 cents. As
I agree.
I put my stick back together.
Absolutely, though. Absolutely. Look, if you're not strapped, guys, you better get strapped. Because like you just stated, militia, they not there to march around and, have flags and serve certain dishes and things of that nature. They're actually training to utilize these weapons. And who are you think they're trained to utilize them against? I mean, he just explained it to you.
Right.
So why wouldn't you, just for self-preservation purposes, do the same? Learn your weapon, get one, whether it's, a handgun or something. Like you said, if I need to be long range with it, something like that, but actually learn it, be able to utilize it, clean it, things of that nature. Why wouldn't you do that? Just for self-preservation purposes at minimum, bare minimum. So great example there to Chief Alligator. Next, we will go ahead and have you continue with this week's inventor, and then after that, we'll have Chief Quietwater with the legal definitions.
And for translation, real quick, anybody watching this video, don't get it fucked up. We more than one dimensional. This treaty shit, y'all niggas might think we nerds or some shit like that. We can get that treaty talk on, and it can get into some other kind of shit. So it just depends on what hat we got to wear. You got to be versatile out here. You can't just hide in the classroom now. You got to come outside sometimes. With that being said, let me share my screen. Let's get it cracking. I think they got us fucked up, y'all. I think because we be on these treaties and shit, they got the wrong idea, as Snoop would say.
Don't be sleep out here.
All right, let's go here. Today's inventor. Let's see if we can pull this up, let it open. We've done this gentleman before. We're gonna do a different invention of his. Just waiting on it to populate. Boom. Okay, so today's inventor is gonna be Mr. Landrow, Landrow, Bell. And we're gonna be doing US patent number 133823. And this invention is the dough kneading, or it says it right here, improvement for dough kneaders. And this invention date was December 10th, 1872. So I'm gonna pull this image up, which gives us a more up close and personal of the invention. All right, so basically what this is once upon a time, like if you're making pizza or doing anything with dough, you had to do it by hand. So what he did is he created a machine where you could place the dough on the table, which is A, and then there's a crank that would be on letter K, the little small gear in between both large gears, and you can turn it with your hand. And that's how you can, I guess, beat the dough down quicker than actually doing it manually with your hands. So as I mentioned, A would be the top of the table, provided with legs and crossbar for supporting said legs. So we got the legs here and we got the crossbar right here. E, which is here. The top is provided a short distance from the end with a bridge or a double line incline. So we can see this little incline right here. So you would set that dough on this little incline and that gear would catch it and start pulling it through these other gears. He's got C, a Uted roller supported in bearings. So we can see C here. We can see the little dotted lines where the pulley would go inside of that. And then we go to A. Again, a short distance in front of this Uted rollers is a smooth roller. So there's rollers on this table as well that we can't see. D is the same as roller C. Here's D and here's C. You see, this is like a wheel. This one's like a gear. So D, same as roller C, but in a lower plane so as to work directly in connection with roller C. So as C turns, D turns. G, which is here, is a called gear. We can see the gears inside of this wheel. So on the outside is a smooth surface. Inside this wheel is going to be gears. I is a balance wheel provided with a crank handle. So I would be here, but the crank handle is not illustrated where they can just physically crank it with their hand. And then K, which is here, A smaller gear arranged between two rollers C and D on a stub axle. So he also invented the smokestacks for trains. That was the last time we did him. So not only did he do the smokestacks, but he also did the dough kneader. And this was for people who would make pizza or different versions of bread or any kind of yeast material. Instead of beating it with their hands, he invented the dough kneader. That's this week's
That
invention.
was a good one this week.
Let me hit stop. Hold on. Got it. All right, pass it back to you.
Perfect, perfect. Great inventor for this week. And actually, I'm going to go with this week's Dr. Woodson quote before we have Chief Quietwater with the legal definitions and maroon historical points. So this week's quote, I am going to go with quote number, it's either between 11 to 12, but I think I'm going to go with 12 for this one. So here, the Negro in his present plight, however, does not see possibilities until it is too late. He exercises much hindsight, and for that reason, he loses ground in hotly contested battles of life. The Negro, as a rule, waits until a thing happens before he tries to avert it. And that's just, I think a perfect example of where we currently are as a group. Just going back to the video that we played earlier when we started the channel. We see, we kind of already knew what was going on within the system, but now it's been confirmed through the Anti-Defamation League that, there's militia within every level of this government, whether it be your politicians, your judges, your law enforcement, even down to your preachers. So we see that there's been infiltration in every level of this government, this system. He gave a perfect example, Ahmaud Arbery getting shot by civilians, retired law enforcement. But now we see us practicing hindsight and arming ourselves in 2020. But now it's like we've reverted back to being stagnant. So we practice it for a moment as far as getting ourselves prepared, but we stop it until it happens again. Then we again practice more hindsight. So again, let's go ahead and try to, instead of practicing hindsight, practice foresight and anticipating these things to happen more frequently, more abundantly. And then that way we can actually protect ourselves and loved ones. So I thought that was a good quote for this week. And with that, I will pass it off to Chief Quietwater, who will read this week's legal definitions and maroon historical points.
Okay. So the legal definitions, number 1, American, indigenous to America. Number 2, descendants, one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either lineally or collaterally. Number 3, slavery, a situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. Number 4, prisoner of war, a person, usually a soldier, who is captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. Number 5, school, any institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. Number 6, education and enlightening experience. And number 7, recovery, a return to a normal state of health, mind, or strength. The action or process of regaining possession of something stolen or lost. All right, the maroon historical points. Number 1 was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law. Number 2, providing unity and a strong defense came first. Number 3, maroon leaders were first and foremost military figures. Number 4, maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks in thick grass. Number 5, maroons knew their European enemies' language, defenses, and plans.
Excellent, excellent. So this week we'll go ahead and jump into, again, the Jim Crow laws. Last week we left off on reading the Georgia Constitution, which pretty much just highlighted how the British colonists said, you know what, we're no longer going to take your bullshit. We're going to, go ahead and separate ourselves completely. And we willing to die about it. We willing to fight about it. After we read that, we kind of jumped into, again, Jim Crow laws, just highlighting our military occupation and how they pretty much wrote it into their bylaws, their government. So this week we'll kind of continue that path. But as we stated last week, it's a lot of stuff we can learn just from that Georgia Constitution. And Georgia isn't the only one that has, their constitution. Each state is going to have their own constitution. But it was very eye-opening to read that Georgia one in particular, and just see how we are currently underneath the same pressures, if you would say, that they were, but they actually decided to do something about it, versus us just complaining and, again, asking for little trinkets and little resources here and there, versus just saying, you know what, completely standing up and saying, you know what, we're going to start our own shit. If you don't like it, come fight us about it. If not, leave us be. And that's what we have to have. We have to have that, light bulb moment as a group of people in order for us to, really move forward and not be, again, in the dweller as a race of, or a group of people, rather.
So both of y'all tie this in for the person that doesn't know what we're about to do with the Jim Crow laws. Tie the Jim Crow laws in to the undeclared Seminole Wars. Why is the Jim Crow laws important? Why are we even going over them? And how do they rhyme with the undeclared Seminole Wars, in both of y'all's opinion?
Got you. Shoot, it just rhymes with if you never left or if you did not leave during that Indian Removal Act. If you didn't leave, what's that? Head west of the Mississippi into present day Oklahoma. Hell, it's open season for you. It's open season pretty much. Like you said, none of them wars were declared. Civil War never declared. Seminole War never declared. These treaties invalid because of that. But basically, if your family did not make that trek over into Oklahoma, then again, the Indian Removal Act, then pretty much if you staying where you are after we said you had to leave, then it's open season. And these laws just kind of highlight why, or just gives I guess legal status for us to do whatever we want. When I say us, just saying like the United States, not being a part of that, but just saying, United States has legal right to pretty much treat you however the hell we want to, because we already gave you notice, hey, you should have been on this thing, but now you're not there, you're still gonna stay there? Okay. Now just know it's gonna be still on site.
And basically the fact that, I think you mentioned before that these laws are still on the books, correct? But they're just not being enforced. So at any given time, well, no, they're continuing to treat you exactly how they were treating you back then. It may be cleaned up a little bit and may not as blunt as it was with the signs of whites and colors and things like that, but these laws are still on the books. They were never removed and they can be imposed at any time, basically.
Excellent point.
Let me ask y'all one more question. And again, we're doing this for the viewer because people they've heard the word Jim Crow, but we're deconstructing what that was. How could they enforce what we're about to read, which was Jim Crow? How could they enforce it? What's both of y'all thoughts on that? How could they enforce that against our people?
Same way they was able to enforce the Indian Removal Act, enforce certain treaties to be signed with their military, and that's the common denominator, I guess you could say, through their military.
Right.
Whoever has the bigger guns gonna be able to call the shots pretty much. So they're able to enforce that through their military. And we see it all the time when we're looking at, old films or even old news reels, news clippings. Whenever our people were to any protests, what were they met with? The military. Even to today, we still see it. So that was pretty much the way they were able to enforce these laws.
And we weren't a part of the process. We weren't included. No votes were were had or anything like that. So they were able to, not only by the military, but they had the final call to make the decisions. So
And the only reason I'm asking that is because a lot of times we're taught that when it comes to our history, nobody ever shows you the documents and lets you read them and comprehend them for yourself. So that's the reason why I asked that. Secondly, when we hear about Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement was to get rid of this, what we're about to read, which is Jim Crow. Our people got tired of living under Jim Crow. So now we're going to read what was Jim Crow. And is Jim Crow a fancy term for prisoners of war within a society? Go ahead, Chief Biko, take off.
but let me ask this. So like we're saying that these are still on the books as laws, right? So is that correct?
Correct. Each state, as Chief Biko said, has its own constitution. So they're not laws,
Okay.
they're legal.
Right, got you.
But
Okay.
these codes are still within these states' constitutions. They just don't enforce it anymore.
And so it's like they had the whole civil rights movement to get what?
Desegregation and the right to vote. See,
Okay.
it was just but yeah, that was a win for us as prisoners of war. You got to think about your parents. The fact that you couldn't go to the hospital, you couldn't ride buses.
True.
That was a win. So now here we come along. Now we got all these immigrants after the civil rights movement, because there wasn't a lot of immigrants before the 60s.
Right.
It was us and them.
Right. Okay.
So me and you were old enough to know we might have had one African in our class, a couple of Haitians. Wasn't what it is now. So we were going to school with first generation immigrants.
Got you. Okay.
Now Chief Biko, Chief Black Coat, Chief Akibaline, they're dealing with second and third generation immigrant. And
Okay.
so we're looking around like, how the fuck did they surpass us? And 40 benign and neglect policy.
Okay.
Great breakdown. So as we get into it, this first one, nurses, and this is from the state of Alabama. And it states here, no person or corporation shall require any female nurse to nurse in wards or rooms in hospitals, either public or private, in which Negro men are placed.
White female, be specific, white female.
White females, correct. Any white female nurse to nurse in wards or rooms in hospitals, either public or private, in which Negro men are placed. So as far as this, you want to kind of go down each one and kind of just give our thoughts, or how you want to? Because shoot, just on this very first one, it just kind of reemphasizes that stereotype of, you know, the Negro being the gorilla, wanting after, you know, the white man's woman. Pretty much the not Godzilla, but King Kong analogy.
I'm on the edge of the coin, so I get it. It's very uncomfortable for us to understand that we're prisoners of war. So us reading Jim Crow laws, you got to ask yourself as the person watching this video, was it segregation, or was this government warring against you? And if you were in a hospital with a European woman and you insisted on her taking care of you, what would the repercussions look like? Would the militia show up to that hospital? Would the sheriff show up to that hospital? Or would everyday European citizens show up with a rope to hang your ass right outside the hospital and nobody go to jail? So was it segregation, or are you a fucking prisoner of war? That's what I'm trying to come straight up the middle and get us to realize. This shit wasn't segregation. Prisoners are fucking war on your own land. Let me stop. Because see, we like to pussy and play around and talk about Republican, Democrat, shit deeper than that. Look at these damn laws. This is what your grandparents went through. And it's embarrassing for our people to talk about it, but it's the truth.
No, straight up. Any thoughts on that, Chief Whitewater?
No, I mean, it's the truth. I mean, it's nothing. I don't think we really need to just break these down. I mean, honestly, because it's just, it's there. So it's the truth. This is what our grandparents went through.
So we can read them, and then if y'all want to, you know,
got you.
More so for the viewer, but go ahead. Y'all go ahead.
No, yeah, we'll definitely do that then. I'll just read through them, and then, yeah, at the end, like you stated, see what it sounds like. Does it sound like segregation, Jim Crow, or just straight up, military occupation? So as we see here, buses, all passenger stations in the state operated by any motor transportation company shall have separate waiting rooms or space and separate ticket windows for the white and the colored race. That's Alabama. Railroads, the conductor of each passenger train is authorized and required to assign each passenger to the car or the division of the car when it is divided by a partition designated for the race to which such passenger belongs. Alabama. Restaurants, it shall be unlawful to conduct a restaurant or other place for the serving of food in the city at which white and colored people are served in the same room, unless such white and colored persons are effectually separated by a solid partition extending from the floor upward to a distance of 7 feet or higher, and unless a separate entrance from the street is provided for each compartment. Alabama.
Now, hold on 1 second, because anytime I take a road trip personally, because my mother is still living, and mother, by her own confession, is Cherokee, even though her birth certificate says colored. When she was growing up and would take trips with my granddad, they couldn't stop at McDonald's. So this ain't that long ago, y'all. This is one generation. So every time I take a road trip, I'm gonna stop at McDonald's. I do it without me even realizing it, because my mom, my aunts, whenever they take road trips, they get picnic baskets and they make sandwiches. The reason why they did that was because they couldn't stop at restaurants. So imagine your mama or your auntie, when they have to use the bathroom, you couldn't stop at a rest area. They would have to run in the woods off the side of the road and take a piss. So I just wanted to tap that in with restaurants, because we got to know what this fucking government did to our people. That's not segregation, y'all.
Yeah. And I'm glad you highlighted that. And I'm just glad you highlighted that, because it makes sense too. Like you stated, I remember my grandma just saying, let me pack you all some, sandwiches for the trip back up to Georgia. She in Florida. And we, being a kid, I'm laughing, sandwiches, grandma, there's plenty of restaurants to stop by, but not thinking, she's thinking because she's experienced, the times where, okay, if I'm making a trip with her parents, whether it be to New York, Georgia, okay, let's make sure we pack for the journey, because we're not sure how many of our restaurants are even available, if there are any, to even stop and eat at. So no, that was a great point you just you highlighted there.
I think there was a movie, was it called The Green Book or something like that?
Correct.
Yeah, about how they had, it was a book of where they actually could stop on journeys while they were driving.
Great point.
It was a prisoner of war manual that we called the Green Book. You're absolutely right. You read that Green Book to keep your ass from getting lynched late night on the road. You are absolutely, where can we go in this motherfucking city?
That we good. That we good. Green, where can we go that we will be good if we eat there? That's crazy. But again, military occupation, prisoner of war. Pool and billiard rooms. It shall be unlawful for a Negro and a white person to play together or in company with each other at any game of pool or billiards. Alabama. Toilet facilities, male, every employer of white or Negro males shall provide for such white or Negro males reasonably accessible and separate toilet facilities. Alabama. Intermarriage, the marriage of a person of Caucasian blood with a Negro, Mongolian, Malay, or Hindu shall be null and void. Arizona.
Now they contradict themselves on intermarriage, because you move some of us in the Indian territory and then you let them peasants
get
with the Malay and the Mongoloid and the Indians. So basically, you can we'll dilute your bloodline in Indian territory, but outside Indian territory, we ain't fucking with you.
And it's funny you said that too, because look where this is. This is Arizona. Pretty sure Oklahoma probably had something similar. I know we don't get into the further West Coast tribes or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure, they were saying, okay, let's go ahead and make sure we get, I don't know, I believe maybe Apache or one of those West Coast Indian American tribes. That makes sense here. They're saying, okay, let's go ahead and try to, combine our blood so we can say we're of, them, like we can get whatever their resources are. Into marriage, all marriages between a white person and a Negro, or between a white person and a person of Negro descent to the 4th generation inclusive, are hereby forever prohibited. That is Florida. Cohabitation, any Negro.
Don't skim over that, because a lot of our uncles and cousins and grandparents have lost their lives with European women. See, the European woman knew it was against the law, but if she got caught fucking one of our men, she would holler rape. You understand? So when we see these movies and they show that the white woman, I think it was a To Kill a Mockingbird or whatever these movies that they implanted in our mind when we were young, how the white woman would be dealing with the American, but when she gets caught, she'll claim victim because she's got the militia, the sheriff, the courthouse, and the state on her side. And that's what we're not understanding as prisoners of war. Like Chief Quietwater said, we're on the outside of this system. So they could come in our neighborhoods at night. You understand? Like when you show movies like Harlem Nights and the juke joints that we had, but we couldn't go in theirs. Or if we went in theirs, all they had to do was just have a bad day. And they knew they had the backing of their militia, their sheriff, their court system, and their state. And it's the same thing today. Today, they just call them Karens, but it's the same exact thing.
Same thing.
I want to share on that.
You kind of just made a light bulb go off with the Roe v. Wade. We know that was a European woman claiming to be raped by a group of American men. Never happened, but that was a case that, caused where, okay, now you can have abortions and things of that nature. So, I mean, that's just a more recent example of this, in regard.
Yeah, and the fact that they do make a lot, that's the general narrative that they have in most of the movies when it comes to white women and black men back in the day. That's pretty much the narrative, that they wanted to be with a black man, but when they get caught, it's, oh, I was raped, or, oh, he forced me or something like that. So that definitely sums it up with that one.
Yeah. This 4th generation inclusive, though, that is something that was like, okay, what are they saying in this particular clause, I guess you could say, or between a white person.
4 generations out, maybe.
Yeah.
So
any person of Negro descent. Okay, 4 generations. Okay, I see what you're saying.
I don't know. You muted, Chief Alligator.
Maybe like if that's like your 4th cousin or something like that, say you're a little bit lighter than Chief Biko, you may be able to get away then because you've got 3 generations before you get back to my complexion or Chief Quiet complexion.
Got you. Okay. Cohabitation, any Negro man and white woman, or any white man and Negro woman who are not married to each other, who shall habitually live in and occupy in the nighttime the same room, shall each be punished by imprisonment not exceeding 12 months, or by fine not exceeding $500. This is Florida. So if we catch you living together, sleeping together, you have a punishment up to 12 months and a fine not exceeding $500. Education, the schools for white children and the schools for Negro children shall be conducted separately. Florida, juvenile delinquents, there shall be separate buildings not nearer than 1/4 mile to each other, one for white boys and one for Negro boys. White boys and Negro boys shall not in any manner be associated together or work together. Florida. Mental hospitals, the Board of Control shall see that proper and distinct apartments are arranged for said patients, so that in no case shall Negroes and white persons be together. Georgia. Intermarriage, it shall be unlawful for a white person to marry anyone except a white person. Any marriage in violation of this shall be void. That is Georgia. Barbers, no colored barber shall serve as a barber to white women or girls. Georgia. Burial, the officer in charge shall not bury or allow to be buried any colored persons upon grounds set apart or used for the burial of white persons. Georgia.
Hold on 1 second. And Chief Quietwater and I can attest to seeing that with our own eyes in Savannah, Georgia, the first capital and the oldest city under the estate of Georgia. There's a tour you can take. I think it's the Underground Railroad.
I think so.
It's
Yeah.
the Black History Tour.
The Black History Tour. And on that tour, you'll go through a cemetery in Savannah. And to this day, you're buried on one side of the funeral, Europeans buried on the other side. It's real to this day.
Definitely see that a lot. I even think one of my cousins in Florida, they was like, yeah, she was looking for, the burial plots. And she stopped and asked another person, they was like, you're looking for, the black burial plots, because these you won't find any of, our people here. So just again, tell another example of that, having to be buried in separate areas as well. Restaurants, all persons licensed to conduct a restaurant shall serve either white people exclusively or colored people exclusively, and shall not sell to the two races within the same room or serve the two races anywhere under the same license. Georgia.
That's how we were doing for self, Chief Biko, not trying to,
okay.
How juvenile we are. When we talk about the towns we had and the businesses we had, like Auburn Ave in Atlanta, all these cities got these historic districts where we used to operate in commerce. It's because we had to, because the European wasn't fucking with us. Yeah, you got a restaurant, you can only serve your people. So they've been trained in that for a couple of 100 years now, talking about the Europeans. So they do it second nature. We came in on some inclusive shit in the 1960s, like, oh, let's just all get along. We lost our code. So here we are 60 years later trying to get back to a code.
Yeah.
Everybody else never left. Y'all want to share on that, or?
No, that's true. We basically had to. We had to, and we let it all go, though. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, why did we, I don't know, just get so domiciled in the things that we know that we could do? Where did we just fall off at? Why did we fall off? Not where, but why did we just fall off and just stop doing for self?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Excellent point there. Like you said, okay, we had to, but then I'm pretty sure, with that you were able to still keep the business going on, but why? What made us stop these trades, these businesses, things of that nature, and just integrate into theirs. That's a great point. Amateur baseball, it shall be unlawful for any amateur white baseball team to play baseball on any vacant lot or baseball diamond within 2 blocks of a playground devoted to the Negro race, and it shall be unlawful for any amateur colored baseball team to play baseball in any vacant lot or baseball diamond within 2 blocks of any playground devoted to the white race. Georgia. Parks, it shall be unlawful for colored people to frequent any park owned or maintained by the city for the benefit, use, and enjoyment of white persons, and unlawful for any white person to frequent any park owned or maintained by the city for the use and benefit of colored persons. Georgia. Wine and beer, All persons licensed to conduct the business of selling beer or wine shall serve either white people exclusively or colored people exclusively, and shall not sell to the two races within the same room at any time. Georgia. Reform schools, the children of white and colored races committed to the houses of reform shall be kept entirely separate from each other. This is Kentucky. Circus tickets. All circuses, shows, and tent exhibitions to which the attendance of more than one race is invited or expected to attend shall provide for the convenience of its patrons not less than 2 ticket offices with individual ticket sellers and not less than 2 entrances to the said performance with individual tickets, ticket takers and receivers. And in the case of outside or tent performances, the said ticket offices shall not be less than 25 feet apart. This is Louisiana. And that just kind of highlights, I know it says circuses, but pretty much any type of entertainment established is pretty much going to be the same thing. I know my mom said when she would visit to South Carolina, going to see movies, they would have to enter another way. They had to like go upstairs and then, I think purchase their tickets and then walk down or have like a section just strictly for quote unquote colored people. And that would be, I think, that's probably like in the late 60s, early 70s still. So again, it just doesn't, hone itself just to circus tickets, but pretty much all entertainment, whether it be sporting events, movie theaters, et cetera, anything. Housing, any person who shall rent any part of any such building to a Negro person or a Negro family when such building is already in whole or in part in occupancy by a white person or white family or vice versa, when the building is in occupancy by a Negro person or Negro family, shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, and on conviction thereof shall be punished by a fine of not less than $25, no more than $100, or be in prison not less than 10 or more than 60 days, or both, such fine and imprisonment in the discretion of the court. I'm going to talk.
That's a prime example of showing how the court system and the sheriff and the state are against the Negro, because that European in that building may not have a problem living amongst us, but that court system and that state and that sheriff will. So I just wanted to throw that in.
The Board of Trustees shall maintain a separate building on separate grounds for admission, care, instruction, and support of all blind persons of the colored or Black race.
If you ain't a prisoner of war, then what do you call that in my juvenile voice? They don't even want the blind around each other. God damn.
Can't even see what color everybody is. They say we can't see, God damn it. Get your Black ass, your colored ass away from our white people. God. Like, that is crazy. This is legit Dave Chappelle skit right here. Like, you can't make this up. The blind, we don't even want y'all by each other, even if you can't tell who is who. Yeah, that's nail in the coffin right there. Intermarriage, all marriages between a white person and a Negro, or between a white person and a person of Negro descent to the 3rd generation inclusive, or between a white person and a member of the Malay race, or between the Negro and a member of the Malay race, or between a person of Negro descent to the 3rd generation inclusive and a member of the Malay race, and forever prohibited, shall be void, Maryland. So basically, if we catch you marrying anybody outside of your race, that's void. That's void. It cannot happen. That's what it pretty much just is there with Maryland. Railroads, all railroad companies and corporations, and all persons running or operating cars or coaches by steam on any railroad line or track in the state of Maryland for the transportation of passengers are hereby required to provide separate cars or coaches for the travel and transportation of the white and colored passengers. Education, separate schools shall be maintained for the children of the white and colored races. Promotion of equality, any person who shall be guilty of printing, publishing, or circulating printed, typewritten, or written matter, urging or presenting for public acceptance or general information, arguments or suggestions in favor of social equality, or of intermarriage between whites and Negroes shall be guilty of a misdemeanor and subject to fine or not exceeding $500 or imprisonment not exceeding 6 months or both. So if we catch you printing, talking about anything as far as equality and especially intermarriage, we gonna lock your ass up. So yeah, no promotion of integration at all. Intermarriage, the marriage of a white person with a Negro or mulatto, or person who shall have 1/8 or more of Negro blood shall be unlawful and void. That's Mississippi. Hospital interests that shall be maintained by the governing authorities of every hospital maintained by the state for treatment of white and colored patients, separate interests for white and colored patients and visitors, and such interests shall be used by the race only for which they are prepared. Prisons, the warden shall see that the white convicts shall have separate apartments for both eating and sleeping from the Negro convicts. Education, separate free schools shall be established for the education of children of African descent, and it shall be unlawful for any colored child to attend any white school or any white child to attend a colored school. Intermarriage, all marriages between white persons and Negroes or white persons and Mongolians are prohibited and declared absolutely void. No person having 1/8 part of or more of Negro blood shall be permitted to marry any white person, nor shall any white person be permitted to marry any Negro or person having 1/8 part of or more of Negro blood. Education, separate rooms shall be provided for the teaching of pupils of African descent, and when said rooms are so provided, such pupils may not be admitted to the school rooms occupied and used by pupils of Caucasian or other descent. That is New Mexico. Textbooks, books shall not be interchangeable between the white and colored schools, but shall continue to be used by the race first using them. So when it comes to the books, we will not be giving any hand-me-downs, regardless of who had the books first. So if it's a white school using these textbooks, they will not be passed down to the black, and vice versa. Libraries, the state librarian is directed to fit up and maintain a separate place for the use of the colored people who may come to the library for the purpose of reading books or periodicals. That is North Carolina. Militia, the white and colored militia shall be separately enrolled and shall never be compelled to serve in the same organization. No organization of colored troops shall be permitted where white troops are available. And while white permitted to be organized, colored troops shall be under the command of white officers. So even when we allow you to have, or when we allow you to have a militia full of colored people, you're still going to be commanded and controlled by a white officer. Transportation, the Utilities Commission is empowered and directed to require the establishment of separate waiting rooms at all stations for the white and colored race. North Carolina, let me see, we're at teaching any instructor who shall teach in any school, college, or institution where members of the white and colored race are received and enrolled as pupils for institution shall be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor, and upon conviction thereof shall be fined in any sum not less than $10, no more than $50 for each offense. Oklahoma. Fishing, boating, and bathing. The Conservation Commission shall have the right to make segregation of the white and colored races as to the exercise of rights of fishing, boating, and bathing. Oklahoma, mining, the baths and lockers for the Negroes shall be separate from the white race, but may be the same building. Oklahoma. Telephone booths, the Corporation Commission is hereby vested with power and authority to require telephone companies to maintain separate booths for white and colored patrons when there is a demand for such separate booths, that the corporation shall determine the necessity for said separate booths only upon complaint of the person in the town and vicinity, to be served after due hearing as now provided by law, and other complaints filed with the Corporation Commission. Oklahoma. Lunch counters, no person, firms, or corporations who or which furnish meals to passengers at station restaurants or station eating houses in times limited by common carriers of said passengers shall furnish said meals to white and colored passengers in the same room, or at the same table, or at the same counter. South Carolina. Child custody, it shall be unlawful for any parent, relative, or white person in this state having the control or custody of any white child by right of guardianship, natural or acquired, or otherwise to dispose of, give, or surrender such white child permanently into the custody, control, maintenance, or support of a Negro. That is South Carolina. Libraries, any white person of such county may use the county free library under the rules and regulations prescribed by the Commissioner's Court and may be entitled to all the privileges thereof. Said court shall make proper provisions for the Negroes of said county to be served through a separate branch or branches of the county free library, which shall be administered by a custodian of the Negro race under the supervision of the county librarian. Texas. Education, the county Board of Education shall provide schools of two kinds, those for white children and those for colored children. Theaters, any person operating in any public hall, theater, opera house, motion picture show, or any place of public entertainment or public assemblage, which is attended by both white and colored persons, shall separate the white race and the colored race, and shall set apart and designate certain seats therein to be occupied by white persons and a portion thereof, or certain seats therein to be occupied by colored persons. Virginia. Let's see, all right, railroads, the conductors or managers on all such railroads shall have power and are hereby required to assign to each white or colored passenger his or her respective car, coach, or compartments. If the passenger fails to disclose his race, the conductor and managers acting in good faith shall be the sole judges of this race. So if we find that you are lying about your race, pretty much what does it say here? The conductor and the managers. So the conductor and pretty much any of the managers of each car pretty much can do what they want to with you. Going to be the judge and jury in regards to what they want to do to you as punishment. Intermarriage, all marriages of white persons with Negroes, mulattoes, Mongolians, or Malaya hereafter, contracted in the state of Wyoming, are and shall be illegal and void. List compiled by the National Park Service, Martin Luther King Jr. National Historic Site. So again, people, just examples of what we call Jim Crow laws, which is basically just military occupation, just saying, hey, you're prisoners of war, and we're going to make sure we dictate where you can and cannot go.
So crack that open a little bit because we don't want to deal with that reality. We like to dance around prisoner of war, but I want to hear from both of y'all because we've all done the work collectively together. We're running a string through that needle all the way from the time that Georgia was established as the last colony, all the way up until, and let me give the timeline, Jim Crow, quote unquote, went from 1865 to 1965. But once you peel back that word Jim Crow, like we've done, and look at the military record, you come to find out that the undeclared Seminole Wars never ended.
Right.
Mhm.
And that's what I think people just don't, like I said, I always have to go back to the fact that people don't know. It never ended, so therefore we're still at war. We are the prisoner of war.
Mhm.
We are the prisoner of war, because it never ended. So, I mean, that's just what it is. And like you said, like with these maps, the military areas and I'm sorry, the militia designations for the different states and stuff, all of that has to do with war, has to do with territory, has to do with everything that had to do with the Seminole War. So it's
Absolutely.
just spreading the information and people knowing exactly what took place. And hopefully, someone, the right person, watches our channel and starts from the beginning and watch it all the way to the end, because it's a chronological picture
Mhm.
of exactly what took place and where we are today, and realizing that really not much has changed, throughout these decades.
Absolutely.
Is it
Absolutely.
embarrassing, Chief Quietwater, when you say prisoner of war and you look at the average person, why do you think we run from that? Prisoner of war.
That's not a common, nobody, the average Black person, that's a foreign word to them.
Mhm.
Nobody is walking around saying, I would say 9 out of 10 people, prisoner of war, that's foreign to them.
Mhm.
I mean, it would have been to me as well had I not, been on this channel and learned. I learned a lot of information throughout these weeks and months that we've been on this channel. So now hearing prisoner of war makes sense to me. But the average person that looks like me, prisoner of war, they're going to look at you like you're crazy because they don't know the information. You know what I'm saying? They don't know how deep this really go. It really isn't even deep, to be honest with you. It's just that it's understanding it, because we've been taught it, but there were so many twists when it was fed to us that we believe one thing, but that's all we had to do is actually read it. You know what I'm saying? For
Mhm.
ourselves, and not being fed the information.
So it sounds like what you're saying is you have to be okay with being educated, because like you said, most
Right.
people are going to look at you like you're crazy, but in
Mhm.
reality, you're educated.
Mhm.
Because
Right. And I'm not saying that they're going to look at me like I'm crazy in a bad way. It's because they don't know.
Mhm.
So learning this information, I'm pretty sure if they learn this information the way that we've learned it and the way that we've basically torn everything apart, they would then understand that they are prisoner of wars. To me personally, there's no other way to look at it once you know the information.
Correct.
do you agree with that, Chief Biko, what she just said, that there's no other way to look at it? Do you agree with that? And if not, why? And if you do, why?
No, definitely. After doing, like she said, doing the work that we did from hell before the Militia Act, but we can start there from the Militia Act up until we are where we are now with the reading of the Jim Crow laws. You see what is going on with our group of people that we are, again, being military occupied. Look at the map behind me. I mean, you have the different branches of military over certain sections of what's known as United States. Like you have the Eastern Branch, Western Branch. Like they're showing you the military occupation of the land. Earlier, when we was reading off the Militia Act, we're showing you the militia districts of Georgia. We just read off what a militia was. Like we're showing you, we're showing you every step of the way of our occupation on our land and us being prisoners of war. We read off the Seminole War, different treaties being, invalid treaties being signed with this military. So if you do the work, then it's no other way you can actually look at it other than being a prisoner of war on your own land. And again, that just comes with the education. Because if you don't, then you're just saying, oh, yeah, we was just, we came from, descendants of slaves. And once we were freed by Lincoln, then, the white people were mad. And that's why we had so much trauma since then, since we became, free people. because that's what's been, taught to us since we were in grade school. But if you actually say, you know what, let me be open and willing to learn something different or something that, contradicts it, and see it, hell, we may even come up to the same answer. If we don't though, and it's like, okay, I see where we're going with this. Damn, we really are, prisoners of war. Then it's like, again, like she said, there's no other way you can actually logically and 100% say that you are no other than, or you're not a prisoner of war. After doing the work, after, hell, just listening and watching our videos from, what was it, July 4th, 2021. If that's all you did was watch our videos, you should come up with the same conclusion. Just plain and simple.
And for me, I think it took for me all the way up to number one, realizing that the Seminole Wars did not end, and that there was no civil war. I mean, those two things are the major things for me personally that made me just open my mind more and understand this even more, that, the rebellion and what went on then, and then the fact that the Seminole Wars just never ended. So therefore, we're in the same situation as we were back then.
And like you kind of highlighted too earlier, these, what we call them, these, laws or legal policies for each state with these Jim Crow laws are still codes within these different states, but they're just not being acted upon. Like that in itself should show you, okay, what the hell is actually going on? Like we are, what you mean they're still, like they haven't been ratified, they just aren't being enacted. You know what I'm saying? It's like we haven't done away with them. We just, we're just not, putting any, enforcing them basically.
Basically, y'all didn't learn how to act a little bit, so we ain't gonna enforce them as much.
Yeah.
So tie this in then, when you said that it was the Civil War that did it for you, that's another hurdle. So one hurdle is the prisoner of war term, because it's amazing. And again, I'm speaking from an educated standpoint. Shout out to Dr. Carter G. Woodson. There's no school for this, but being self-educated, understanding that we are prisoners of war. Why would we want to hold on to slaves? Slave makes it seem like our ancestors never fought back. Prisoner of war means, yeah, you fought back. You just over time got surrounded and got occupied. They ran you out of your towns. If they couldn't run you out of your town, they burnt your shit down. And thus you end up replacing the Jews in the ghettos. Historically speaking, Jews were the first ones in ghettos on this land, and they moved them out and they moved us in after they either gentrified us or burnt our shit down. But coming back to y'all with that Civil War, do you think that's another hard pill for people to really digest, that damn, there was no Civil War?
The average person, yes. The average person, again, who don't have this information or don't know any better, absolutely yes, because everything current day, like you said, our parents, everything is hinged on the Civil War, the Civil Rights Act. That was for the Indians, so it's all a facade, really, because people don't know the real information. So I just think that it still goes back to the lack of knowledge about the whole thing.
Where you at, Chief Biko? Do you think that's a hard pill to swallow about that Civil War not happening and the prisoner of war term?
I think the Civil War not existing is a harder pill to swallow than us being prisoners of war. Just because of what has been taught to us, that in just because what has been taught to us as the significance of the Civil War. So every time we hear Civil War, people are saying, or it's taught to us, that was to free the slaves. And when we think of slaves, we think of people that look like you, myself, and Chief Quietwater. So if we say there was never a civil war, then the person who was just going strictly off the indoctrination that this government has given them is saying, then what you mean? That was the whole point of the Civil War, was to free us. So what you mean there wasn't a Civil War? And I think that's the biggest hurdle that our group of people is going to have to get over. You know what I'm saying? Because if we're saying, okay, there's no Civil War, then you're saying then there really wasn't a battle to free us. None of the stuff that came from this non-existent Civil War was for us. And we were not a part of this government in any capacity. And that's exactly what we are saying, pretty much. This Civil War wasn't to free you. The laws that came after it, Reconstruction, wasn't for you. We've already broken that down. 13th through 15th Amendment said nothing specific about people that they are classifying us as in this Jim Crow laws. Negro, African descent, says nothing about any of those groups of people that we've been reclassified as. Freedmen's Bureau says nothing of any of those groups we've been reclassified as. Like, what is it? The 1865 Civil Rights Act says nothing about us. So when you actually do the work, instead of just actually listening to somebody feed you, you know, their lies, which is just Reconstruction, then you'll see, okay, yeah, none of this stuff really does have to deal with us. When you actually understand how the system works, Congress never did declare a war. So there really wasn't a war, hence why they keep saying rebellion. So then you could start seeing the picture, then it becomes easier. But if you don't do that, then you'll just be like, nah, y'all folks crazy, y'all niggas crazy. It was a Civil War. It was, the whole point was to free our people. And then you'll never be able to move forward from that.
And that's where we are as a group of people right now in 2022. That's why I love what we've done. And I love what this channel represents, as you say, from July 2021, with all the negative going on with the pandemic and everything, we're shining light to our people for over a year, giving you American inventors, reading the military record. Nobody ever thought to keep it gangster, if I'm gonna say it like that. All your college professors, you spend so much time learning who George Washington was, who Abraham Lincoln was. Nobody ever thinks that this is just some gangster street shit. Let's go straight to the military record. And the military record tells the real story of what happened. To this day, we're waiting on these people to openly declare war on us. They're not going to do that. That's the bottom line of it. They waged war in the Southeast region, which was the Creek Confederacy. They waged an undeclared war, and they've been waging it for over 160 years. And what we're doing is we're trying to play Democrat, Republican, racism. We want to deal with everything outside of the fact these people are killing your ass on video at this point, and they're not going to jail. They're calling you monkeys in city council meetings, quietly recorded, and they're not willingly stepping down, and they're not being fired, and they're not having charges pressed against them. You got all the signs that you're in a war, but you won't believe you're in a war until they tell you, we declare war against the Negro. That's what we are. We want them to tell us it's going to be a fight after school, but we keep getting swung on in between every class in school. That's basically what this shit boiled down to. It don't take a rocket scientist to figure out these people swinging on you, and then when they don't knock you out, they say, "Oh my God."
They do not like you. They not your friend. That's not a greeting. Motherfucker punching in your face ain't a, hey, how you doing? That's, I don't like you.
Right.
Every time I see you, it's on sight. I don't know why you want me to just say I don't like you. My actions are speaking louder than my words right now. Like that's elementary shit. Your actions speak, oh, I like you, but you ain't showing me things that you like me. I don't like you, but so I'm hitting you, I'm picking on you. Yeah, they don't like me. How you know? They never said it. I mean, they throwing stuff, they bullying me. Like, come on, y'all. It like you said, it ain't rocket science. It ain't rocket science. It ain't that hard.
Correct. So we're looking at this map. So to put in, just to add on what y'all just shared, Jim Crow law, you notice they keep using the word Negro and African descent. How did we get reclassified as Negro and African descent? Because when Andrew Jackson, the person that the human being that's on that $20 bill, which is not money, but we're not going to get that deep. The person on that $20 bill, Jackson, he unlawfully went into war against the red area on that map. The people that they got into Oklahoma, they were able to steal our birthright, i.e. Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Seminole, and Creek. Everybody that did not go into Indian Territory, we got classified as Negro, colored, Black, Afro-American, now people of color. It's not hard, y'all. So we got issues with 6 different governments. We got issues with the 5 fake civilized tribes that took our birthright, and we got issues with the United States government that's waged unlawful war on us since the 1800s when they established the last colony, which was Georgia in 1733, with a general from Great Britain sent over here by King James. Got Oglethorpe universities all over the state of Georgia, and you niggas ride by it, but not understanding who that fucker is. He got a big ass memorial in the city of Savannah in a fucking park that they take you on a tour of a hanging tree right next to that park where they hung American businessmen. And then rode you around on a horse and carriage in that little town square to put the fear of God in any other American that wanted to be in business. All the people that got hung when they talk about the lynchings, that's a whole nother map in the Jim Crow South. Thousands of us were lynched. Why? For land and our businesses. How do we end up in the ghettos in the 60s, but your family was in the country the generation before that? You were ran out of your towns in the rural area. Then they put your ass in military occupation camps called ghettos. So you were getting rations just like the niggas in Oklahoma was getting rations. They just called it government cheese and food stamps. I don't know why we just don't want to just look at it for what it was. And then Chief Quietwater and my parents, we're the first generation that didn't grow up in the ghetto. You see what I'm saying? But everybody prior to 1960, that generation, you either come from the country or your ass was in the ghetto. Any closing thoughts from y'all too before we get up out of here on this military occupation, these Jim Crow laws?
I mean, shoot, we just read off in different states Jim Crow laws, and they all pretty much had one thing in common. We gonna control what the American can and can't do. So if a person is being able to control what you can and cannot do, what does that make you? That's a clear definition of a prisoner. And war has been waged on us since they stepped on this land. Until we actually understand that, understand that, we're gonna continue to replay this nightmare over and over again until we understand what that nightmare is telling us.
Great point. Great point you brought up. And that's why MLK came with his civil rights movement, because that generation got tired of living up under prisoner of war terms, i.e. Jim Crow laws. And so they fought for desegregation, and they fought to be able to participate under the oppressive government, which is why we talked about last week of you have to establish your own. It's not designed for us. And again, that's not being radical. That's just looking at United States government history. You fighting too much for less than average shit. Right now, they got an election coming up. You niggas ain't got no agenda from none of these politicians.
None at all.
None of them are telling you what they're going to specifically do for you. In LA, they got a whole quote unquote black and brown situation. But have you ever gone to the Hispanic Caucus website and looked at who the Hispanic Caucus really represents? They specifically represent Hispanics.
As they should.
Then you go to the Black Caucus website and realize who they represent. They represent every damn body. So that's an accounting term.
Mhm.
You got a caucus that's accounting for everybody, but everybody else's caucus only accounts for their people. And you wonder why you losing.
Facts.
It's third grade math. This shit ain't rocket science. Chief Quietwater, anything you want to say before we get out of here?
No, not really. I agree with both of you. I think, again, it comes down to us just knowing this information and taking it from there. But definitely a great session tonight.